Morning, everybody. Let's just jump right into reading. It's Thursday, technically the day before spring break. Chapter 16, we had left Reddy Gates had flown in the balloon. The balloon took off, actually accidentally, and he went for 2 hours and ended up kind of what is like over by Sacramento, a little bit west of Sacramento. I don't know. He was able to walk. Yeah, west of Sacramento. Here, let's look at this map again. That's his balloon flight. So you can see it's like kind of above Benicia, but that's no small walk. You know what I mean? Like there's Oakland, right? And there's the where is it? Berkeley would be up here. I mean, that'd be walking many miles. Okay, let's jump. Lost my place. So you can see I got the computer with the better camera working again, which is nice. You can see the unicorn better, but you can also see my grizzled face better. Okay. Chapter 16. Chapter 16. Right. Last line was a gray-haired woman in calico dress answered his knock and looked at him most curiously. He was at a farmhouse. Okay. The following morning, Mrs. Thompson, that's the lady, served Reddy a heaping plate of griddle cakes. If you're walking to Benicia, you need a good breakfast. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, he said eagerly. Promise me you'll go immediately to your mother. She must be worried sick. Yes, ma'am. If you see Mr. Kelly again, tell him from me he has no business placing a boy like you at risk of life and limb. Oh, yes, ma'am. Mrs. Thompson gave Reddy 2 apples and a piece of cornbread for later, and she pointed him towards Benicia. Find the main road up there in a mile or so. Mr. Thompson will never believe me when he returns. Imagine a red-headed boy falling out of the sky. I wouldn't believe it myself. Reddy walked for hours before a farmer in a wagon gave him a ride. Like Mrs. Thompson, at first the man did not believe him. However, Reddy provided so many details that finally the man accepted his word. Why didn't you hang on to the balloon after you landed? I'd held on to that thing long enough. At Benicia, the farmer dropped Reddy off at the first street and pointed him towards the wharf. The steamer from Sacramento should be along by nightfall. Though he'd passed it many times, Reddy had never visited Benicia. Now he studied an assortment of hotels, saloons, stores. Where could he get something to drink? Too bad he had left his money with Max in that pouch. One large building on First Street stood out, red brick, impressive row with Greek columns. It was the state capitol. Reddy remembered with a smile how Pat Hull used to describe what the legislature did, undoing what was done last year and making laws that'll be repealed next year. He kept walking to the wharf, where he found a man selling steamship tickets. Excuse me, sir. Half sure he'd be called liar. Yesterday I left Oakland in a balloon. You're the balloon boy? The man exclaimed. We thought you were dead. The agent shouted to the man mending the fishing net. Hey, it's the balloon boy. He's here. He's safe. The fisherman dropped his net and came running. The balloon boy? A dozen people gathered around him. How far did you go? How high did you fly? What did it look like up there? Were you afraid? Were you going to fall? I'd be happy to tell you about it. If first I could have some water. Water! Get him water! Someone handed him a flask of water, and he guzzled it greedily. Someone else gave him a small loaf of bread. As he ate it, the Wilson G. Hunt arrived from San Francisco en route to Sacramento. The ticket agent shouted up to the people in the dock, It's the balloon boy! He's here! He's safe! People streamed down the gangway and pelted Reddy with questions. How did you do it? We thought you were dead for sure. How far did you go? Let me through, a deep voice boomed. That was my balloon. Reddy looked up to see Mr. Kelly. Glad you're in one piece, lad. Where's my balloon? He pointed wordlessly at the sky. Soon the passengers returned to the steamer, and the Wilson G. Hunt continued towards Sacramento. Mr. Kelly stayed behind and questioned Reddy. The aeronaut filled in some details Reddy hadn't known. That balloon was constructed to my specifications by the famous John Wise. Wise said it was the finest balloon ever made. But something had happened on its passage to the eastern states. Someone had thrust a knife into the folded balloon, tearing the silk in dozens of places. Though he'd spent weeks mending it, many tiny leaks remained. That's why it was so hard to inflate. Every penny I had went into that balloon. I thought it was the answer to my dreams. Instead, it was the end of them. The aeronaut placed his hand on Reddy's shoulder. As soon as you took off, I followed on horseback as far as I could. I knew the balloon would lose its gas sooner or later, but I lost sight of you before you even reached Mount Diablo. Not knowing what else to do, I returned to San Francisco last night. Today I took the steamer planning to ask every place if anyone had seen you, and here you are. Thank goodness for that. Mr. Kelly wandered dejectedly away. The ticket agent treated Reddy to dinner. When the Antelope, that's the steamer, arrived from Sacramento en route to San Francisco, the agent personally escorted Reddy on board and introduced him to the captain. Is there anything you require, young man? One thing. Could I please have some paper and something to write with? The Antelope reached Long Wharf at 11 p.m. At 15:15, Reddy burst through the front door of the newspaper, The Commercial Advertiser. The editor, working on the next day's edition, looked up in astonishment. Reddy Gates, you're not dead! Reddy flashed him a grin. Nope, I'm not. From his pocket, he pulled out 2 pieces of paper covered with writing. I have a business proposition for you. A while later, Reddy walked out of the newspaper office smiling. The Commercial Advertiser had agreed to run an extra edition with his first-person account of the balloon ride, and the best part, they'd furnish all copies to him in the morning. He'd be the only one in town selling his story. Why, he might earn more money tomorrow than he had all summer. He broke into a run, and he didn't stop until he got home. It was almost midnight when Reddy bounded up the front steps and knocked loudly on the door. Horace Fitz answered it in his nightshirt. After staring at Reddy with wide eyes, he called upstairs, Mrs. Gates, it's your son. He's alive, and he's in one piece. Reddy's mother flew downstairs in her nightdress as Hugh and Charles came out of their alcove from the kitchen. His mother grasped his shoulders and wept and wept. His brothers hugged him from each side. The other boarders crowded around him. When his mother finally loosened her embrace, she pulled him upstairs to father. Reddy gingerly touched his father's hands. Mr. Gate closed his fingers around his son and said, I told you, mother, that if anyone could get himself off that fool contraption alive, it was you. Everyone else crowded into the bedroom and started talking at once. Except for father, they had all watched the balloon ascension from roofs and balconies and thousands of other people in San Francisco. But of course, no one had known Reddy was riding it. That changed when the ferries returned. Sorry, trying to get out of the sun. That changed when the ferries returned. News of his peril had spread through the city like fire. 3 people had informed the Gates family before Max could tell them himself. Morning's papers had printed detailed accounts, all fearing Reddy was dead. Now everyone in the house wanted details. Reddy talked until past 2 in the morning, when his mother shooed the others to bed. He stayed quietly with father until mother returned with her Bible. She sat next to Reddy, opened the book, and began to read softly. If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there thy hand shall lead me. When she finished the passage, Reddy kissed her goodnight and went downstairs to bed. Tuesday morning, San Francisco hummed with the news of Reddy's safe return. Every paper in town, including one in French and another in Spanish, trumpeted the news. The San Francisco Herald called him a hero. The Alta California wrote, his name will be spoken from Europe to Australia. The regular edition of the Commercial Advertiser gave only brief details and advised readers to buy a copy of Reddy's Extra for the full particulars. Everywhere Reddy went, people surrounded him. Aren't you the balloon boy? What was it like up there? Weren't you scared? Weren't you cold? A French lady pinned a rose on his lapel. A German baker gave him fresh pastries. A Catholic nun in an outfit told him, I prayed for you, young man. People thronged to buy his extras. If anyone asked a question without offering to pay, he smiled and said, if you want to know all the details, why don't you buy a newspaper? By noon, Reddy had sold every one of them, many even for $5. He pocketed $400, and he headed towards Wynn's, the ice cream place, but also restaurant, for a hearty meal. Okay, that ends chapter 16. there's still a really cool conclusion to chapter 17. Where, even though tomorrow is the first day of vacation, I will do this tomorrow. All right. I bid you well. We'll be in touch.